I hate running.
That's an interesting take, Tyler.
I really hate running. I just don't enjoy it. I'm just not good at it. I don't ever experience the running high. I never feel like I'm actually doing things efficiently. I used to play soccer in high school, and all we did was run. And my coach maybe traumatized me from running. I just don't like it. It's not my favorite.
And that's understandable. That's the way a lot of people, I think, feel about it. And I myself also was not a great runner. I used to hate gassers when we did them during football.
Oh my God,
I was the last one across the line. So it wasn't something enjoyable to me until I really delved into running form and getting better at running. It became I became more economical. What that means is I was able to run better for longer and get the benefits of things like the runner's high, and the mental aspect of being out there and pushing myself a little bit more and not feeling the pain or the fatigue or the things that happen with bad form, where you can kind of get lost in the run and enjoy being outside and running.
Well, that explains why sophomore, junior, senior year, I was always injured running. And I feel like so many people can relate to that. Like if you played a sport in high school or in college, I feel like at one point or another, you just kept getting injured and you had no idea why you were getting injured. And the lucky few who weren't, I wish I were you. But I had shin splints I think it was my sophomore year or junior year, because we were running downhill and doing a bunch of hill drills. And then after that, everyone was just destroyed and no one was able to do anything effectively. And I feel like ever since those days, it just doesn't click for me. I'd rather jump rope. I'd rather do the Stairmaster. I'd rather do sled work. I'd rather do anything else than just start running. And I know we were built to run. That's how we survived, but it's just not an enjoyable thing.
I was in the same boat. Run for fun. That's what I say. Who would run for fun? And I run for fun now. So running can be a very rewarding very rewarding activity. It's going to help with your cardiovascular skills. It's going to help you in almost every other thing you do because of the cardiovascular benefits. So what we like to say is you want to run better and run smarter. So if you run appropriately, if you do the right warm-up exercises, running doesn't have to be a task. It doesn't have to be a job. It can be an enjoyable thing. Injuries are part of many runners' careers. We're going to try to minimize those. And if you do the right things, we can eliminate things like shin splints. We can eliminate plantar fasciitis. We can eliminate knee injuries, runner's knee, jumper's knee, patellofemoral syndrome, IT band syndrome, snapping hip syndrome. All these things we see with runners, we can eliminate or at least minimize them if we do the right warm-ups, if we do the right drills, if we do the right strengthening exercises. I know you runners out there hate your strengthening exercises, but they are a giant part of you remaining, number one, injury-free, but also maximizing your ability to run.
So what you're saying, Doc, is that we can run better and run smarter?
That is exactly what I'm saying. So again, I'm Dr. Peter Scordilischiro. I'm here with my LCA and performance specialist, Tyler Peterson. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about how to run better and how to run smarter. Our little intro there was kind of give you guys an idea and feel of where we're coming from as runners, or not runners, as Tyler said. Yeah. So today our goal is really to get you to the point where you can question how you run and maybe run a little bit better. So one of the big concepts in running is the energy and how you're expending energy. So when we run, to run efficiently, any energy that we expend that doesn't propel us forward is wasted and possibly can cause an injury. So when you're running and you're heel striking or you're breaking yourself as you run by slowing yourself down, that energy has to go somewhere. And a lot of times it ends up in our knees, it ends up in our ankles, it ends up in our hips, and that's how we end up injured.
So basically what happens is when we're running or doing any type of movement in life, force has to go somewhere. It's going to translate to some part of your body, whether that be intentional or unintentional. And people tend to say, it's like, oh, I went out and ran the first time and I got injured. It's like, well, I wouldn't associate the running with why you got injured. I would associate how you were moving while you were running. And I'm not speaking from a place that I am any better than maybe you are, but I do know the little tips and tricks that are going to help me get that just a little bit better from saying, hey, this run wasn't horrible and I did a great job and I didn't hurt myself this time. Keyword this time. It's always about bettering yourself each time and making sure, like Dr. Peter said, you're not heel striking, you're not overstriding. A lot of people like to overstride. It's like, oh, I need to get faster. I need to get a further step forward. It's not about how far you stride. It's about how fast you can turn over, how fast you can get your feet to come out from underneath you and place back down.
And a big important thing to take from Tyler is the every time, improving every time. Because running is a repetitive thing. And that's a big way people get injured. It's the repetitive stress injuries. Think about doing something 5,000 steps, 6,000 steps, 10,000 steps, 20,000 steps over and over and over again. I use a story with a lot of my runners of one time I had injured my toe and I put a Band-Aid on my toe. And I went out for a short run and it felt fine. And then I did a 15-mile run and my foot felt like it was soaking wet. When I took off my shoe, that Band-Aid had ripped all the skin off the toe next to it. So because of those repetitive nature of that little tiny Band-Aid that's not that rough, just rubbing against that toe, it literally ripped off the skin off my toe. So now think about what happens inside your joints. Think about what happens inside your muscles and ligaments if they're constantly doing the same movement and that movement is not adequate or not good. So that repetitive stress will eventually lead to an injury.
Think about it like this. From a strength and conditioning standpoint, because I love going to the gym, you go to the gym and you train a squat 4x8 or a 5x3 or a 3x3. Sometimes there's heavy load, sometimes there isn't. But what ends up happening is you're only training that movement for a fraction of the day. You are walking the entire day, unless you're very sedentary, which I'm telling you, people, get up, move. It's worse for you than smoking. But what's going to happen is if you just keep doing the same movement over and over and over again, you're ingraining a neural pattern or making your motor units recruit in a certain way that every time you move, it's just going to keep causing that injury or that issue, which is what we want to try and prevent. So being conscious of how we're walking in our daily life translates to how we're running, and then just getting those little tips and tricks to help stop certain things from popping up is the next step we want to approach.
So that's the first way we get injured by running, is that repetitive stress. But there's also traumatic injuries. And you'll say, well, traumatic injuries, how do we stop those? How do I stop an ankle sprain? Well, there's things we can do to help minimize the chance of ankle sprains. One of the big ones is what we call dorsiflexion, or the ability to lift your foot up. If you lack enough movement up in your foot, that's going to make you more prone to have what's called an inversion ankle sprain, because you don't have the range of motion to be able to get over on your stride. So traumatic injuries can actually be prevented by doing the right warm-ups, doing the right strengthening to make your body move better, which prevents some of those traumatic injuries.
That is true. That is true. Luckily, I haven't had any of those bad ones yet. Keep going.
So again, injuries happen with a couple different things, and it's typically a continuous cycle. We talk about bad movement patterns. We talk about sometimes extrinsic factors, which are things like improper footwear. Again, when we say improper footwear, we don't just mean that there's one type of footwear that works for everyone. It's finding the right footwear that works for you in your current situation. And that might change. Sometimes when you start running, you're in one pair of footwear, and then as you get better or stronger, you might move to something like a zero drop shoe, something with a very minimal shoe. Some people need stability shoes. Some people need more cushioning because of different things going on with their feet. So really getting checked out and making sure you're wearing the right footwear is the important thing to prevent injuries.
There's so much stuff out there about feet, and I've dived down a huge rabbit hole before about what is the proper footwear or what can happen with the shoes you're wearing today. Guys, you're wearing sports fashion shoes. You're not wearing performance shoes. Your foot is not meant to look like this. Imagine going out into the world, put a glove on your hand, and go and try and do things throughout your day. That's essentially what you're doing with your shoes. And I heard a really good thing on a podcast I was listening to. Have you ever gotten home at the end of the day and you can't wait to take off your shoes? Think about that. That's not a good thing. Why should you feel great and be like, oh, I took off my shoes. That feels so much relief. It means there's something wrong. You shouldn't be looking at, oh, I can't wait to do this as a good thing. You should be looking at it as, why do my feet hurt so much? And don't think of other things like what he was talking about, bad movement patterns. It's not the initial incident that happened, like the straw that broke the camel's back. It's that buildup of little time. Like people say, oh, I threw my back out picking up a tissue. Okay, it wasn't that the tissue was heavy. It's that you kept doing the same bad movement pattern over and over again. And then the next thing you know, you go pick up that tissue and you hurt yourself, which is what we don't want.
And talking about bad movement patterns, we talk, especially here in New Jersey, the road has a camber to it, has an angle to it. So if you're running on the, which most of us do, right? You can't run in the middle of the road because we don't want to get hit by a car. We're running on the side of the road and running on the same side of the road all the time. One of your legs is going to drop lower than the other. And this can actually create problems long-term, like T-band syndrome, hip problems, imbalances in your hips. So look at these intrinsic factors. Look at where you're running. Make sure you're changing things up. And that being said, don't throw in extra miles for no reason. A lot of times we just do these extra miles because we think we have to, or I'm just going to squeeze something in, and that's where a lot of those injuries occur as well.
You're not safe at the track either, guys. Not safe at the track. Just because you keep running the same direction over and over and over again doesn't mean you're going to prevent anything. You're just going to start having repetitive trauma happen on, let's say, the left leg that's facing towards the grass, because there's always grass in the center of a track. Or you can go the opposite direction. So switch it up. Don't just keep going the same way. It's not just being out on the roads, it's being on a track, even if you think that's a safe space.
100% true. The other thing that we neglect a lot of times as runners is I have 20 minutes to get a run in, so I'm just going to head right out the door, lace my shoes up, and here I go. Warming up is key. And when we're talking about warm-ups, there's certain types of warm-ups that are good for you and certain types of warm-ups that are bad for you. When we're talking about good warm-ups, we're talking about dynamic movements.
Moving through space, don't do static holds. I hate when I see people just bending over and touching their toes. It's like, oh, my hamstrings are worn up. No. You're just setting yourself up to get injured down the road. And that could literally be like 100 feet down the road when you're running. Think of it as your muscles need to move through a range of motion. If you just hold one set movement, that's not replicable what you're doing out on the road. You need to do things that are going to help mimic what you're doing when you're running. That's huge.
Yeah, we're all about function, and really function is the way to go. Think about what you're doing and why you're doing it. From the strength training world, I always use the example of a preacher curl. When in real life are you ever going to be locked into a position with your elbows extended and have to curl something towards you?
Well, hey, I had to pick that car off that ledge, and I had to do that preacher curl, and it saved my life.
So think function. Think about why you're doing something. What does it mimic that you're actually meaning to do when you're going to be working out, whether it's running or something else? Because if it doesn't mimic something or doesn't improve something, then you're really just wasting your time and possibly even leading to more injury. Static stretching, they've done some studies that have actually shown that it can actually lead to more injury and weakness in the muscle that you're stretching.
That is true. Unless you're doing a static stretch in between sets in the gym, that's a whole different story we can get down. But regardless.
So we just talked about what not to do during running, before running, is static stretching. Instead, you should be doing some dynamic stretching. We said don't jump right into a run. That's one of the worst things you can do. It's really a great way to just injure yourself almost immediately.
Really big one. Don't use your everyday running shoes every day, like the ones you walk about in. Like, don't use those as running shoes. Like these shoes I'm wearing right now, I'm not going to go run in them. Dr. Peter's shoes that he's wearing right now, he's not going to go run in them.
Nope. You have running dedicated shoes. And it's you have a different wear pattern and a different biomechanics to walking than you do to running. So if your shoes are wearing a certain way when you're lifting in them or you're walking in them and then you try to run in them, it's going to create a bad patterning for your body.
That is true. That is true.
Hydration is another big one. A lot of people don't really hydrate enough anyway during the day. I mean, if you're feeling thirsty, you're actually already far gone. You should not be feeling thirsty. So we should be drinking water throughout the day. We use the rule of half your body weight in ounces of water. And then when you're going to go out for a run, make sure that you're hitting that hydration point through the day, not just trying to gulp down some water right before you go out. If you're in a hydration hole when you start running, your muscles are already going to start feeling that. That's
huge. Hydration is huge. Think of like beef jerky, guys. Beef jerky is just dehydrated meat. You put some water on that, it's a steak. Not really, if only. But think of that with your muscles. If you're going out to do something and you've had no hydration in your body, you're not drinking any water, it's beef jerky. You go to run, you go to do that one initial burst, that could be an injury, or it could be an injury down the road.
Now, we talk about already being dehydrated. A lot of runners these days, especially if they're injured, are popping NSAIDs before they go out for a run. And this is one of my biggest pet peeves. Number one, you shouldn't be running on an injury. So if you're popping Advil to try to get a race done, that's just a no-no.
Pain is not weakness leaving the body, guys. Pain is not weakness leaving the body. Pain is an indication that something is not moving right. Not that you can't push through certain things. If you're a Marine or you're a Navy SEAL, you got to push through pain. But if you're an everyday average Joe, the more you run through a painful state, the more it's going to ingrain that neural patterning that's going to make it harder for you to break it down the road. So figure out why you're in pain. Don't just pop things to mask the pain.
Yeah, but pain's an alarm, right? And if that alarm is increasing, then obviously something is wrong. There's a difference between soreness. There's a difference between some pains actually that movement helps. And certain movements will actually improve pain. But running is not one of the things that's going to improve pain, especially if the pain is increasing as you're running. And with the NSAIDs, now you're already dehydrated. Now you're popping these NSAIDs, which is masking a little bit of the pain, but it's also putting stress on your liver, your kidneys. And really, they've done some studies on marathon runners and found that their kidney function was significantly impacted by taking NSAIDs before a race. So we want to stay away from those things without a doubt.
There are just so many things out there, and Dr. Pierre and I can literally go down a rabbit hole with this stuff. There's just so much more to what we want to talk about with you guys, and we're hosting this seminar. We would love to see you guys there. It would just be a huge, huge event for you, because now you finally figure out, it's like, no one's taught me how to run. I never learned how to run. My coaches in high school never taught me how to run. You just kind of do it. Well, now we want to teach you how to properly do it. Don't just think, oh, I'm fine, I don't have any issues. Just like, evaluate your running form when you go out. See what you notice. Pay attention to things.
Yeah, we see some very common things in both advanced runners and beginner runners, and it tends to fall into a couple categories. So one of the big things we talked about before was heel striking. That's a big problem with a lot of runners. Again, it's breaking your energy. So if it's breaking your energy, that energy has to go into something, and it's usually going into an injury. Stompers. Stompers are people, you can hear them hitting the ground. If you are heavy on your feet, again, where's the energy going? Talking about foot injuries, shin injuries. There are ways to fix these problems. We just need to pick up them first. Scuffing is another big problem. We can usually hear that. You might hear that when you're running on the treadmill. It might make it sound like your foot is scraping across the treadmill, and that's a big, huge problem that we'll start to see. Number one, your wear pattern in your shoe is going to be awful. You're going to blow through shoes all the time. But more than that, it's putting a lot of shearing stress across your shins, across your knees. And then you're going to wonder down the road, hey, how did I tear my meniscus? Why do I have degenerative changes in my knee? Why am I getting shin splints? Well, maybe it's because you're scuffing and you're not picking up your feet properly.
And there's more to come. My favorite is when I see people running and they're doing this. Love this.
Swimmers. We call them swimmers.
Your arms are very much so related to your legs. So whatever this right arm's doing, your left leg's doing. Whatever this left arm's doing, your right leg's doing. So what do you think your legs are doing when you're doing this? This is not proper running form, guys. Like, not anywhere close to it. And I'm not saying I'm not doing that, but I'm just saying that's not the right way to do it.
And not even that, more so, there's ways to fix it. You can't just think about it either. There are drills, there are exercises you can do, there's warm-ups, there are things that we can do or that we can teach you how to do so that you can fix these problems so you don't get injured. And more importantly, for anybody who's an accomplished runner, it's going to make you faster as well. So why not do it? Crossing over midline is another one that we see a lot, where it's hard to tell yourself because you probably think you're running wide. You probably think your feet are wide. But we see people all the time that are running almost like they're walking down a catwalk, like they're a model. If you're crossing over midline, your body is not meant to really work in that positioning, and it really creates a giant problem. And we usually see that a lot of times in coordination with the swimmers because they're swimming over midline and they're crossing their legs over midline. Really prone to injuries when you do that.
You guys are beautiful, and we want to see you strut your stuff, but not like that and not while you're running.
So again, we've given you a lot of information here today, guys. Some really touched on a lot of interesting concepts as far as warming up, as far as running economy, as far as certain things you need to be looking for in your running that can prevent injuries. The big thing we really want to get is we want to get you all to a place where you can run comfortably, where you can run injury-free, and you can run faster. And if we do that, then we've done our job, and we've done a great job with some runners in the past, and really help them get out of some of the holes they were in. And we want to be able to help you guys all do that as well. So we hope to see you at our upcoming running seminar and get you through these issues as well.
Like this video, subscribe to our channel, check out our rehab series, click on our social links above, or check the description box below for more videos that you might find interesting.